I recently started learning how to spin, and if you can't tell from my technique in this clip, I picked it up only a couple of weeks ago, so I'm very new to it and still learning how to stop holding the fiber in a death grip. This video actually shows the first time I was actually able to keep up a spin for more than 10 seconds straight. As I've been spinning, I thought it would be really useful to have an apron to keep my usually long and usually dark colored skirts from picking up every bit of loose fiber like a magnet. Unfortunately, the aprons I have are too short for this, but fortunately this means I have an excuse to make myself a pretty sort of Victorian/Edwardian style one. I wanted to make something along the lines of a turn-of-the-century style apron. As you can see, they varied from quite plain to aprons full of pin tucks and lace and ruffles. I wanted to make a pinafore style one on the simpler side, with a long gathered skirt, a slightly gathered pinafore top, and of course, some very generous pockets. I found a video by Pour la Victoire to be very helpful in making this apron. I'll link to it in the description if you're interested in making your own. To start off, my main pattern pieces consist of a large rectangle for the skirt and a smaller one for the bib of the apron. Every other piece is basically a rectangle or square of some variety. I started by making a deep hem on the top of the bib, ironing down 1/4 of an inch and then about another inch and stitching that in place. Then I took the pattern pieces for the straps and matched them right sides together along the outside edges of the bib. I stitched along that seam and then opened those pieces out to press them with the seam allowance facing the strap. I basically ironed my pieces in between every single step, but if I showed all of that, it would probably take up about 90% of the video, so just keep that in mind. Then I folded in the raw edges of the strap by following my seam allowance all the way to the end. Then I did the same on the other edge of the strap. Then fold and press the entire strap in half lengthwise and stitch it down close to the edge. This is what it looked like after the straps were done, and I also added 2 rows of gathering stitches along the bottom of the bib, very close to the edge. I concentrated the bulk of the gathers to the center of the bib and smoothed out the sides closest to the straps, since I think this gives it a nice, neat look. I did the same gathering method along the top of the skirt, using the longest stitch on my machine all across the top. This time I spread the gathers out evenly across the skirt. This step is very adjustable depending how full you want your skirt or how far back you want the apron to reach around your waist. Next, I attached the waistband right sides together to my skirt, and please ignore the fact that the edges of my waistband have been ironed. I repeatedly forgot how the construction of this apron worked during this process, and this is not the last time I will mess up in the making of this apron. After stitching that down, I trimmed the seam allowance a bit and pressed the waistband up. Then I realized I forgot to hem the sides of the skirt, which I should have done before the waistband, so I went and unpicked those seams a little bit, and then did a double fold hem on the sides of the skirt before re-stitching the waistband ends. And now for a try-on interlude. I'm realizing here that I don't love how the bib sits on me right now. It sits too high and is a bit wide as well. So I sort of haphazardly folded it into the waistband a little bit to get an idea of how it would look if I made it shorter. And I decided that was the way to go, as well as making it a bit narrower too. Long story short, I went in and did some surgery on the bib portion, and unfortunately I had to remove the straps so I could cut down the bib to the right size. It was a bit of a hassle, but not too bad, and my seam ripper was getting a little bit lonely anyway, so this is my new and hopefully improved bib piece. Onto a very important step, the pockets. I can't see this being a very functional apron at all without any pockets. I completely made this step up as I went and just did a small double fold hem on 3 sides with a larger folded hem on the top of the pockets because I think it looks nice and it kind of mirrors the top of the bib. Placing the pockets was a bit equally haphazard. I marked the center of my waistband and attempted to measure to the sides and down from that point equally on both sides. I tried it on a few times with the pockets pinned so that I could adjust the position, and they ended up about 3.5 inches from the center line. Then it was just a matter of stitching those down. I was rudely interrupted by my treadle belt finally deciding to give up the ghost. I tried to join it back together and even put a piece of tape around it, but after several years of dutiful service, I decided it was time to retire it and get a new treadle belt. With that dealt with, I moved on to attaching the bib, putting it right sides together with the waistband, similar to the skirt. Then taking the waistband facing, which is the same exact piece as the waistband, I pinned it right sides together to the waistband, essentially sandwiching the bib between them. Then I realized just in time that I forgot to sew on the ties of the apron, so I put those on the ends of the waistband and stitched them down before sewing the facing. With that done, I first pressed the waistband and facing flat, before turning down the facing over the raw edge of the skirt and turning the raw edge of the facing under. Finally, onto the buttonholes, where I get to show off my amazing vintage buttonhole attachment for my treadle machine. I think it's such an amazing mechanical device, and I love seeing how they were able to take a basic straight stitch machine and devise something that can actually make something as complex as a buttonhole with it. Although my machine is from 1911, this buttonholer was made in 1948, but they're perfectly compatible with each other. It works using little metal templates for different size buttonholes that you place inside the buttonholer. So by putting in the 5/8 inch straight template, I will get a 5/8 inch straight buttonhole. There are also templates for keyhole shaped buttonholes, but I haven't gotten around to trying those yet. I'm starting out by doing a test buttonhole to make sure it fits the buttons that I want to use for the apron. Once I get it going, I sit back and watch the magic happen as it stitches around. Definitely do not plan on doing buttonholes with this at night though. You will probably wake up your entire household. This buttonhole is done and looking really nice to me, and the button fits through with just a little bit of resistance, which is perfect for me. So with the buttonholes made, I'm on to sewing the buttons onto my straps, and I ended up making them far too long, so I just cut off the excess and refinished the ends. And finally, I can reveal the final result of my beautiful new apron. I'm overall really happy with how it turned out. Even if I did have to go back and fix several mistakes along the way, that's really just part of the sewing process. I especially like the gathered skirt and just feel the need to constantly swoosh it around. I'd try to do a twirl, but I know I'd probably just end up flat on the ground. And the apron definitely passes the spinning test, as it easily goes past my knees when I sit down to spin, which is perfect. I also think it very much complements the overall vibe of the spinning wheel setup, if I do say so myself, though I don't think many women were spinning their own yarn around the turn of the century, so I might be off by 100 or 200 years. Maybe some of the women of the aesthetic movement would have done so. It kind of seems like something they might have been into. And now I've got myself thinking about sewing myself an aesthetic/reform movement dress. So many project ideas and so little time and energy. As you can see here, I am spinning a different fiber than in the beginning of the video. It's a merino wool, which I'm finding a little tricky in some ways, but I'm having a really good time spinning with it so far. I feel like my technique has already improved a lot. And I don't have any plans for this particular spin. I think I'm kind of in my no thoughts, just spinning phase right now. This will definitely become something down the line though, so I hope you'll hang around with me on my channel to see what I come up with next. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. And if you enjoy historical fashion, sewing, knitting, crocheting, and now spinning too, consider subscribing and liking the video. That lets me know if I should keep making videos like this in the future. I'll see you soon in the next video, and until then, bye.